And of course
The ship.
the Maritime Electric too.
Oh, yes.
And the ship, Maritime Electric, there were the line that feeds PEI as electricity was getting old, so they had to find a new route for it. And at one of our MTI meetings there, they came and said, we found a nice place to cross. We found an old river underneath the Northumberland Strait. Sounds funny, you know, you got a whole big body of water there, but there's an old riverbed there. Back 5,000–10,000 years ago, there was no Northumberland Strait. The land was connected, and First Nations traveled along that river, and they told at that meeting, he never discovered nothing. Yes, your technology proved it was there, but if you came and talked to our ancestors and talked about the indigenous knowledge, we would have shared that knowledge with you, that we know where that river is, or that. And the reason why they want to put it there, the Northumberland Strait historically is real rocky underneath, hard to drill, but that river is sandy. And it's kind of, you know, it's lower, it's deeper than the actual strait itself, so it's in a crevice. So that particular area would protect the cable because it being the deepest part of the Northumberland Strait. And our ancestors knew it was there. And of course the ship, that lost ship on the Northwest Passage, they were looking all elsewhere, and the elders said, go over there.
They've been telling them for years.
For years, go over there. There's where it was. And most recently, a particular whale species, I don't know which one it was, one of the most recent ones, is that the scientists were concerned, you know, migration patterns are changing simply because of the climate change that seems to be happening. We see it with the humpback whale along the East Coast in the summertime and spring like that. What surprised to me though, we only hear about the humpback whales and the threat of what happens to them in the springtime. We never hear nothing all year round. So where are they now? They have to be along some coast because you just follow the food, right? So where are they now? You don't hear nothing about the humpback whales from September till next June. Well, they just don't disappear. You know, they're out there somewhere. But I forget what it was. A particular whale. I don't know the species, but there were some researchers up in the Hudson Bay area where historically they always seen this particular species of whales, and they weren't coming around. The amounts weren't, you know, they see 4 or 5 a year, and so they were just, I guess, from what I understand, ready to put it on the species at risk. They talked to a few elders. No, you're in the wrong place. Go over there. They counted 8,000. They were just in the wrong place, where historically they used to be. They were just in the wrong place.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because research scientists, typically, they have 2, maybe 3 weeks during the field season to get out. So they go, they do, I call it like helicopter science, right? They drop in, they say, oh yeah, I spent 2 weeks in a community, I know everything now. This happened with the caribou in the Northwest Territories. And they said, the caribou are all gone. There are no more caribou. And the indigenous people were saying, they're idiots. We have to show them where the caribou went because they're not coming this way anymore. They changed their migration route, right?
Well, it's the same now with the Quebec herd. Right now, the sad thing about sports hunting, like I'm a hunter, I hunt, I kill animals and all that, and you know, for food and stuff like that. But I won't kill the majestic animals. I won't kill the cows, but I won't kill the big bulls. But society has taught us to kill the biggest because it's a trophy game, right? But the Labrador First Nation said to a lot of the sports, stop shooting the big bulls. They're the ones who lead the herd. You take the leader out, all of a sudden the caribou don't know where to go. You're taking the monarch out of the herd. You're taking the leader who knows the route of how to take the whole herd to where they need to go. If you keep taking out those majestic animals, you're decimating the herd.
Yeah, well, they got majestic by earning that right.
Well, they came up. They started at the end of the herd, and they moved their way up.
Yeah.
You know, but the elders kept saying that for years. Stop killing the big bulls. Stop making this a trophy hunt.
Yeah.
And they were taking out so many of the big bulls. Eventually, the herd is lost. They don't know where to go no more.
Yeah.
And so
Scientific typically the big ones carry the best genes, and if you take those out, evolution will take
Obviously,
them to hurt. Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
that's why they're the biggest, right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
survived all those years,
Yeah.
there's something to be said.
Yeah, if they cannot pass on that gene, that herd is doomed.
Well, my son Ryan, he comes home every year to go fish in my lobster boat. He's a sharpshooter for the prison system. Stressful job, but he loves to hunt. And he sent me home a video there the other day where he has a license to take a ram, a big ram. He sent me a video of one of the biggest rams I ever seen the other day. He did not shoot it because he knows. 10 feet away from him. What are the chances of getting a ram like that up that close to you? Beautiful animal. And it was with 3 or 4 other rams. He never took none of them because he knew that big ram was learning those other rams what to do. Even though when it comes to mating season, they're butting heads. But at that time, there's a lot of as we would say, tech transfer going on.
Yeah.
So he did not take it. You could hear him on. I don't play for too many because you could hear him on. I should take it. I should take it. No, I can't. It's not my way. You could hear him right all by himself talking like that on the video.
Arguing with himself.
Yeah, arguing with himself. Just one last quick story about the bass. I remember when the scientist, Scott Douglas, he was the head DFO, and he was a young scientist, bright man. He come up, and I was fishing on the river in Eel Ground, and I was fishing for salmon. And he come over, introduced himself. He said, I'm Scott, and I said, I'm Steve. And he goes, you see many bass in the river? I said, yeah, come and go. I said, I see a few here and there. And he said, we think they're endangered. I said, you think they're endangered? No. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, well, what makes you that assumption? He said, well, we notice the bass in the Miramichi River has been designated as the last northern spawning population, the furthest north. Historically, it was in the St. Lawrence Seaway. They used to travel as far as the St. Lawrence Freeway, and that's where they used to spawn. So, for some reason, they can't figure out why the St. Lawrence Seaway doesn't have them anymore. But when he said that to me, he said that to me later on, as we later on in the years, and I said maybe with Montreal dumping in 20 million liters of raw sewage one year and 50 million liters of raw sewage the next year must have some type of effect. But here we are with a septic tank system in your house, and as soon as they see one small little drop of possible E. coli, whatever, going into the river system, they'll charge the homeowner, they'll get that fixed, do this, do that, do this. But yet, a city like Montreal can write an order and get approval for it to dump in 50 million liters of untreated sewage. And they turn around and say, we're doing this, we have to do this because the treatment facility is not working right. But, in the same line, but the sewage is treated. How could it be treated if the facility's broke down and they're draining the facility in order to fix it? But they do it every year. I hear it's being talked about this year again. 35 million liters of raw sewage. People don't understand bass. Bass is like an eel. That's why we see a big run in the springtime and a big run in the fall time. They come back in the river in the fall time. What they do, the same as an eel will put itself underneath the mud. That's how it hibernates to stay warm. A bass will back up in the mud and just keeps the head out and breeds all winter right there. The only time you see bass in the wintertime in any area is around these thermal plumes. Like we got hot water coming out by industry. You go there, you'll catch bass in the wintertime. The bass will be all around those thermal plumes, especially on the Miramichi. But I said to Scott, I said, don't implement some type of protective plan around these bass because you're going to release the wolf of the river. They eat everything. And so this was when, they were trying to reach a spawning requirement of 30,000 bass, 30,000 spawners. And around 2002, they reached 30,000 spawners. So then, after they reach that 30,000 spawners, the objective is to maintain a 5-year means. Maintain that 30,000 spawners for 5 years. Then you can say the population is sustainable. It went from 30,000 to about 75,000 to about 180,000 to 300,000 to 900,000 in 5 years. So it increased 30 times fold. Now that 900,000 spawners only represents 30% of the total population. So that, when they come up with 900,000 spawners roughly about 3 years ago, that represents 1.25 million bass in a 3-mile stretch. Nothing could get by. You could put your fingers on the water with a little bit of blood on it, come up and try to grab your fingers. It's unbelievable. It's fantastic. It was nice seeing the fact that, wow, the fish are back. But it's like the seals. You turn around and protect the seals, where the population, the gray seal out in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, it was down to roughly 500,000. They wanted to increase it to 1 million. Now it's 6 million out there. And they're trying to get First Nations to cull them out. And they asked First Nations if you want to do a seal hunt. And the objective of how to do a seal hunt was go out and corral 50 at a time, bring them to shore, and shotgun them. You imagine how media would take that if all of a sudden we were bringing 50 seals to shore and just massacring them? Of course we said no. Manage it right. And then the bigger picture, we're all concerned about the salmon. So here now you got salmon. They don't know what the population is. They'll turn around and pay a country like Greenland $145 million a year not to fish the salmon, but they won't give First Nations $1 million to do capacity building, so we cannot move away from salmon. But they'll give a foreign country to save the salmon, primarily at first for the anglers. When the wreck fishery was alive, that's why they were saving it, because they're making revenue from the wreck. Now there's no more wreck fishery, but they're still paying Greenland roughly $145 million not to fish for 45 ton of fish, salmon a year. That's what they catch, 45 ton. But they won't give First Nations nothing, and we're in an Aboriginal treaty. And what money we do get for the Aboriginal fishery to put in those food traps, it's at 1970 budgets. So here's a community, excuse me, that doubled in size population-wise, was still working with budgets from 1970, when the population was 400, now the population's 1,000. And so, when the bass, and I remember I tried so bad to get charged by DFO, and I tried so bad. For 5 years I tried. I have no trouble bringing them out in the boats, bringing the biologists out in my boat, because I believe science and indigenous knowledge, any local knowledge, doesn't that necessarily have to be indigenous knowledge, just local knowledge can benefit science. Can definitely steer science in the direction they need to go. That's why doctors ask you questions when you're sick. Where does it hurt? All of a sudden you're going to stand there and let him or her make all the decisions. Where does it hurt? So anyways, when I used to, you weren't allowed to take any. You weren't allowed to, here goes my throat again. You weren't allowed to take any, and you weren't allowed to take any. So I was trying to get charged. Here I was, with a big 15, 20 salmon on board. I was filleting them. Go ahead, charge me. Cutting open the stomach. Look, there's salmon in it, eel in it, everything in it. Charge me, please. I want to get charged. Playing them right there, packaging them, giving them to the crew on the boat. They wouldn't charge me. They won't charge a native person any fishery issue no more, because they know they'll lose. But I tried to get the question answered with respect to why you're protecting the species that is going to decimate the river. Mm-hmm. That's all the talking I'm doing today. I could go on forever.
We'll have to get you a Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll answer any more questions, though.
More questions?
You just want me to keep coughing, eh? No, go ahead.
Did you ever go back to your high school and your city council and say, hey,
Yes.
Oh, they read about me all the time.